Ethan Cooper, 35, sat quietly in the luxurious office at the top of the building that bore his name. Through the surrounding glass windows, the city's twinkling lights stretched out like scattered stars. He lifted a glass of red wine, but its bitterness couldn't fill the emptiness within him. As a brilliant CEO, Ethan had built a leading technology empire from scratch. He had everything people dreamed of: fame, power, and wealth. Yet the more he held in his hands, the more he realized how hollow his heart felt. 3 past relationships had left only bitterness behind. The women who entered his life were captivated by the aura surrounding him rather than the man he truly was. They loved the lavish parties and the title Ethan Cooper's girlfriend, but none understood or accepted Ethan when he removed the dazzling CEO mask. Christmas was approaching. A time meant for joy and reunion felt like a cruel reminder of his solitude. One evening, his longtime friend Lucas walked into the office. Lucas was always open, cheerful, and the kind of person who could pull Ethan out of his darker moments. "Why are you sulking here, Ethan?" Lucas asked, setting a steaming cup of coffee on the desk. "Christmas is coming. Why not try something new?" Ethan gave a faint smile. "Something new? Work? Projects? Fake relationships? I'm sick of it all." Leaning forward, Lucas's eyes lit up as if he'd just had a brilliant idea. "Then try dating. A blind date. No pressure, no expectations, just dinner. Who knows? You might meet someone interesting." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "A blind date? You've got to be joking." Lucas chuckled. "I'm serious. It's just one evening. If it doesn't work out, you've only lost a few hours. But if it does, you might find something you've been missing for so long." Ethan studied his friend, skepticism mingling with curiosity. He disliked uncertainty and detested losing control. But Lucas's words made him pause. After a few moments of silence, he nodded, though doubt still lingered. "All right, just one evening." Ethan had no idea that this decision would change his life forever. Part 2. Sophia, the compassionate woman with a heart of gold. Sophia Carter gently set down her pen, massaging her temples as she glanced up at the wall clock. It was nearing 11 p.m., yet the warm glow of her small desk lamp continued to light up her office. Outside, snow fell softly, draping the little neighborhood in a pristine white blanket. She smiled as her eyes drifted to the crack in her office door, through which she could see the orphanage's main hall. The children were fast asleep, their faces serene and peaceful under the glow of the nightlights. For Sophia, this was the greatest reward, watching these children find hope and happiness despite the hardships life had dealt them. Since becoming the manager of the orphanage, Sophia had poured her heart and soul into caring for the children. She taught them how to read, organize storytelling sessions, and simply listen to them recount their day's adventures. Her life revolved around sacrifice and giving, and she had never considered seeking happiness for herself. But Anna, Sophia's closest friend, thought otherwise. Anna had tried countless times to pull Sophia out of her work bubble, but Sophia always refused with the same simple explanation. "I'm happy here, Anna. The children need me." Tonight, however, Anna was determined not to take no for an answer. She entered Sophia's office with a mischievous smile and an envelope in hand. "Sophia, we need to talk," Anna said, taking a seat across from her. Sophia looked up, smiling back. "You're trying to convince me to go out again, aren't you? I don't have the time, Anna." "No, not going out. Just one dinner," Anna insisted, placing the envelope on the desk. "I've set up a blind date for you. Not to bother you, but because I think you deserve to be happy." Sophia's eyes widened as she stared at the envelope. "Anna, I don't have time to date. And you know relationships. They're not for me." Anna burst out laughing, grabbing Sophia's hand. "You're acting like I'm asking you to marry someone tomorrow. It's just one dinner. You have nothing to lose, Sophia. Think of it as a chance for me to thank you for everything you've done for the kids, okay?" Sophia hesitated, her gaze shifting to the children's sleeping quarters, then back to Anna. Part of her wanted to say no, but the genuine plea in Anna's eyes made it hard to refuse. "All right," Sophia sighed, picking up the envelope. "Just this once." Anna beamed, pulling Sophia into a tight hug. "You won't regret this. The person you're meeting is bound to be interesting." Sophia shook her head, smiling at her friend's enthusiasm. Little did she know, agreeing to this blind date would lead her on an unexpected journey that would change her life forever. Part 3. A Fateful Encounter. On Christmas Eve, snowflakes fell gently outside the frosted windows of a cozy little restaurant. The warm golden glow from the candles on the tables created an intimate and inviting atmosphere amidst the winter chill. Ethan walked in, clad in a tailored suit that exuded sophistication, though a hint of skepticism lingered in his eyes. He didn't expect much from this blind date. In a quiet corner of the room, Sophia had already arrived. She had chosen a simple green knit dress, her hair cascading softly around her shoulders. Unassuming yet elegant, she sat quietly at the reserved table, her hands gently clasped together, her expression a mix of nervousness and calm composure. Following the waiter's direction, Ethan walked slowly toward her table. As their eyes met, both paused, momentarily taken aback. Ethan hesitated for a beat, captivated by Sophia's clear, kind eyes and her sincere smile. Meanwhile, Sophia couldn't help but notice the poised exterior of the man before her, tinged with an unspoken loneliness she couldn't quite place. "Hello, I'm Ethan," he said in a deep, warm voice, tinged with a hint of hesitation. "Hello, I'm Sophia. It's a pleasure to meet you," she replied, her radiant smile adding warmth to her words. The conversation began cautiously, with polite small talk and brief exchanges of glances. But as the dishes were served, the atmosphere between them gradually shifted, becoming more relaxed and engaging. Sophia spoke first about her work at the orphanage. Her words were filled with a genuine passion and love for the underprivileged children she cared for. She shared stories of her daily life, moments of laughter, tears, and the simple dreams she worked tirelessly to fulfill for the children. Ethan listened intently, his eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and admiration. He had never encountered someone quite like Sophia, a woman who not only possessed an extraordinary sense of compassion, but also dedicated her entire life to others without expecting anything in return. "I never imagined anyone could live so selflessly for others," Ethan said, his voice quiet with awe. "Your work is truly remarkable." Sophia blushed, her soft laugh carrying a hint of humility. "It's what makes me happiest. Seeing those children smile makes all the challenges worth it." In turn, Ethan opened up about his own life. He spoke of the emptiness he felt despite his successful career and abundant wealth. He shared stories of 3 failed relationships and the loneliness he endured even while surrounded by luxury and grandeur. Sophia listened in silence, her thoughtful gaze growing heavier. She saw beyond Ethan's polished exterior to a soul yearning for solace and genuine connection. As the dinner drew to a close, the air between them had grown more comfortable, their exchanges more natural and meaningful. Ethan placed his napkin on the table, and after a brief moment of hesitation, spoke. "Would you like to take a walk with me?" Sophia looked up, her eyes widening slightly in surprise, mingled with curiosity. "I think it's quite cold outside," she said with a small smile. Ethan's own smile was warm and reassuring, his sincerity evident. "I promise, I won't let you feel the cold." Sophia nodded gently, her lips curling into a slow smile. "All right, I'd like to feel a bit of the Christmas air myself." Together they stepped out onto the street, adorned with the brilliant lights of Christmas decorations. The soft chill of the winter breeze enveloped them as they walked side by side through the glowing cityscape. In that moment, neither of them could have known that this simple walk was the beginning of something extraordinary, a journey to rediscover the true meaning of love and happiness. Part 4. An Evening Full of Meaning. The Christmas lights shimmered like tiny stars stretched across the streets, creating a warm and magical atmosphere amidst the winter night. Ethan and Sophia strolled side by side, their steps slow and deliberate, blending into the festive hustle and bustle of the holiday. Along the way, they passed by shop windows adorned with colorful displays, the lively chatter and laughter of people adding vibrancy to the scene. Sophia shared stories about the children at the orphanage, tales of joy and sorrow, moments that made her both laugh and shed tears. Ethan listened intently, his gaze fixed on her, following every small gesture she made. The gentleness in Sophia's voice made him feel as though he was stepping into an entirely different world, one where the simplest things held profound meaning. "Do you ever feel tired?" Ethan asked, his deep voice carrying a note of genuine concern. Sophia turned to him, her eyes glowing with a strange radiance, as if the question had touched a quiet corner of her soul. She smiled and shook her head gently. "Sometimes, yes," she admitted. "There are days when everything feels so hard, like when a new child comes to the orphanage and struggles to adjust. But then, when I see them start to smile, start to feel like they belong, it makes everything worthwhile." Ethan looked at her, saying nothing, but he knew deep down that he had never met anyone like her before. The way Sophia spoke about her work and the happiness of the children made him feel as though she had discovered the true essence of life. A strange feeling swelled in his chest, as though the icy barriers he had built over the years were melting under her warmth. "I've never met anyone who loves their work as much as you do," Ethan said, a faint smile appearing on his lips. "It's something I truly admire." Sophia chuckled softly, taking another slow step along the snow-dusted pavement. "It's not just work, Ethan. It's my life. And I think that when we live for others, we receive far more than we give." They stopped at a small stand selling hot chocolate. Sophia suggested, "Would you like a cup?" "Hot chocolate is an essential part of Christmas." Ethan nodded. He bought 2 cups and handed one to Sophia. "So, tell me more about the things that make Christmas special for you," he said, his gaze gentle. They sat on a park bench nearby, sipping their hot chocolate as their conversation flowed effortlessly. Sophia spoke of the small Christmas parties at the orphanage, of how she and her colleagues prepared gifts, decorated the tree, and created magical moments for the children. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel alone. He felt the warmth of the stories Sophia shared, as though she had brought a bit of Christmas magic into his life. She impressed him not only with her kindness, but also with the way she made everything seem so meaningful. "You're truly a remarkable person, Sophia," Ethan said after a moment of silence, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I think tonight has been the most wonderful evening I've had in years." Sophia smiled, her cheeks slightly flushed from the cold. "Thank you, Ethan. But I think sometimes just finding someone who understands you and sharing a meaningful evening is already a great gift." They continued talking as the Christmas lights gradually dimmed behind the gentle curtain of falling snow. That Christmas night no longer felt cold, and within each of them arose a newfound hope that this encounter might just be the beginning of something extraordinary. Part 5. A relationship built on trust. After that fateful evening, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Sophia. Her gentle smile and passionate eyes made him feel as though he had discovered something truly precious in a life that once seemed hollow. He began to reach out to her, starting with casual phone calls, followed by invitations to cozy coffee shops and peaceful strolls in the park. Sophia, though initially reserved, accepted his invitations. Deep down, she felt drawn to Ethan, not just because of his sophistication, but also because of the sincerity in his gaze and the way he genuinely listened to her. Gradually, their meetings became something they both looked forward to. Ethan, growing increasingly curious about Sophia's world, suggested joining her in activities at the orphanage. Sophia hesitated at first, worried that someone like Ethan, who seemed to come from a vastly different world, might struggle with the simple and sometimes challenging tasks. But Ethan's persistence and patience convinced her to agree. From his very first visit to the orphanage, Ethan surprised Sophia. He didn't hesitate to roll up his sleeves and dive into mundane chores like sweeping floors, fixing furniture, and even playing games with the children. Initially cautious around him, the kids soon warmed to Ethan's humor and warmth. He shared funny stories, helped them with their homework, and occasionally brought little treats to brighten their day. Sophia watched him closely, a strange feeling stirring within her. Ethan wasn't like anyone she'd ever met. He didn't just talk about helping. He acted with genuine care and commitment. His sincerity and patience made her feel at ease, and though she didn't say it aloud, she found herself trusting him more and more. One day, while preparing for a charity event at the orphanage, Sophia stumbled across an online article about Ethan Cooper, the accomplished CEO of a leading tech company. She froze as she realized that the man described in the article was the same Ethan she had grown close to. The piece painted him as a young, influential millionaire, admired in the business world. Feeling a mix of shock and betrayal, Sophia couldn't shake the thought that Ethan hadn't been honest with her. After the event, she sought him out, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice trembling with conflicting emotions. Ethan, who was fixing a broken chair for the children, paused and looked up. He sighed, his eyes meeting hers with unguarded honesty. "I didn't want my wealth or status to influence how you saw me. I just wanted to be myself when I was with you." Sophia stood still, his words resonating deeply within her. In the past, she had assumed that someone as wealthy as Ethan couldn't possibly understand her modest life. But his actions, everything from his willingness to take on small tasks to the way he cared for the children, had shown her that he valued more than appearances. "I didn't feel the need to say anything," Ethan continued, his voice steady yet warm, "because I knew you weren't like anyone I'd ever met. You make me want to be more authentic, better, and rediscover what truly matters." Sophia felt the weight of his sincerity in every word. A soft smile spread across her face as the tension in her heart eased. "I think, perhaps I misunderstood you," she said quietly. "Thank you for not letting those things define how you treated me." Ethan gazed at her, a sense of relief washing over him. He realized that this moment was more than just the resolution of a misunderstanding. It was a significant step forward in their relationship, one built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine affection. Part 6. A Magical Christmas. In the week leading up to Christmas, Ethan quietly planned something special for Sophia and the children at the orphanage. Without mentioning anything to her, he closely observed her daily activities, noting what brought joy to the children. From selecting gifts to decorating, Ethan meticulously prepared every detail, determined to create a Christmas Eve everyone would remember. On Christmas Eve, Sophia returned to the orphanage after attending another charity event. As she approached, she noticed something unusual about the atmosphere. Through the windows, twinkling lights cast a warm glow, and the sound of cheerful laughter filled the crisp night air. When she entered the main hall, Sophia froze in astonishment. The entire room was transformed into a winter wonderland, adorned with sparkling fairy lights, colorful balloons, and a grand Christmas tree standing proudly in the center. Beneath the tree lay hundreds of carefully wrapped presents, each with a personal touch, as if they had been thoughtfully chosen for every child. The children erupted in excited shouts, running to Sophia and pulling her into the heart of the room. They eagerly recounted how Uncle Ethan had orchestrated everything, from decorating the tree and setting the tables to picking out the perfect gifts. Sophia's eyes glistened with emotion as she saw the children's faces glowing with pure delight. Ethan, dressed in a simple yet elegant suit, emerged from the corner of the room. His warm smile and kind eyes made Sophia's heart skip a beat. He approached her, holding out a small, beautifully wrapped box. "Open it," he said softly, his voice carrying both warmth and a hint of nervousness. Sophia carefully unwrapped the box. Inside was a delicate necklace, its pendant a small heart inscribed with the words, "Hope and Love." Nestled alongside it was a neatly folded note. With trembling hands, Sophia unfolded the note and read the heartfelt words written in Ethan's strong yet tender handwriting. "You've shown me the true meaning of love. I don't just want to build a family for these children. I want to build one with you. Will you let me stand beside you to make every moment more meaningful together?" Sophia looked up at Ethan, her eyes brimming with tears. In that moment, she felt her heart overflowing with warmth and serenity. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion, "I trust you." The room erupted in applause and cheers from the children, their joyful clapping echoing around them. Ethan wrapped his arms around Sophia, knowing that she was the most precious gift he had ever received. That Christmas Eve was more than just a celebration of lights, presents, and laughter. It was a moment where two hearts found each other, forging a bond built on love, compassion, and mutual understanding. From that day on, Christmas was no longer just a holiday for Ethan and Sophia. It became the beginning of a lifelong journey, one where they shared their love and brought new meaning to the lives of those around them. Together, they created a legacy of kindness, proving that the greatest gifts are those born from the heart. Part 7. A New Journey. After that magical Christmas Eve, Ethan and Sophia's lives turned a new page. They were no longer just a couple in love, but became passionate partners on a journey to spread compassion and kindness. Ethan used his influence and financial resources to help Sophia expand the orphanage. The once cramped rooms were replaced by spacious, well-equipped facilities. A new learning center was built, furnished with books, computers, and educational tools. The children were not only cared for, but also given opportunities for holistic development, paving the way for brighter futures. Sophia, with her inherent dedication, continued to lead the orphanage. She meticulously planned educational programs, life skills training, and community events to foster connections. Despite his demanding role as a company CEO, Ethan always made time to support Sophia. He never hesitated to roll up his sleeves for small tasks like painting walls, cleaning, or even attending classes with the children. Inspired by their story, the community quickly rallied around them. More volunteers arrived, bringing warmth and love. Together, Ethan and Sophia initiated larger charitable projects beyond the orphanage. They established centers to support street children and hosted workshops to assist struggling families. The annual Christmas parties at the orphanage became the most anticipated event in the region. People from all walks of life attended, families, volunteers, and even business leaders eager to contribute to the philanthropic efforts. The atmosphere of warmth, love, and generosity left everyone feeling the power of community. Ethan and Sophia became symbols of the transformative power of compassion and genuine love. Their story was shared as a testament to the truth that the greatest things in life are not material, but arise from actions of the heart. The children at the orphanage grew up surrounded by love, carrying forward the values that Ethan and Sophia had sown. During a Christmas party 5 years after their first meeting, Ethan stood next to Sophia, gazing into her eyes filled with love, before addressing the gathered crowd. True love doesn't lie in what we possess, but in how we give our kindness and sincerity to others. Sophia taught me that life isn't just about personal achievements, but about building a better world together. And the magical thing is, when we give, we receive so much more in return. We hope our story inspires you to continue spreading love and compassion. Under the sparkling lights of Christmas, his words blended with laughter, songs, and the shimmering eyes of hope. Ethan and Sophia proved that love not only transformed their own lives, but also had the power to change an entire community, and perhaps even the world. The sunlight shimmered through the glass windows of a grand mansion, where Marcus Vance, a 38-year-old millionaire, lived a life of luxury but profound solitude. To those observing from the outside, Marcus's life seemed perfect. He possessed immense wealth, held significant power, and commanded respect in the business world. Yet the reality was entirely different. Within the vast expanse of his mansion, every corner echoed emptiness. Marcus lived surrounded by endless riches, but felt as though he truly owned nothing of real value. Marcus had once sought meaning in life through love, but both of his marriages had ended in failure. His first marriage was to a woman he thought he loved, but disagreements and the pressures of life drove them apart. The second time, he sought a more stable relationship, but his cold demeanor and controlling nature caused everything to fall apart. After those failures, Marcus concluded that love was nothing more than an illusion, a game of emotions he had no interest in playing anymore. However, one obsession continued to haunt him. Marcus did not want to leave this world without someone to inherit his legacy. Every night, as he sat alone in his office staring at the empty chair beside him, he could not shake the thought. He needed a child, a successor to carry on his bloodline and name. But building a family the traditional way was no longer an option. He refused to be tied down by emotions or the complications that came with a relationship. Marcus decided to do things his own way. To him, having a child did not need to be accompanied by love. It was akin to an investment, a project. All he needed was to find a woman willing to bear and deliver his child in exchange for a large sum of money and a secure future. Everything could be based on a contract. No emotions, no strings attached. That morning, Marcus drove his sleek luxury car through the bustling city streets, In his mind, he calculated the perfect approach to execute his plan. He needed a woman with nothing to lose, someone without connections or ties that could complicate matters. As he stopped at a red light near a downtown intersection, he noticed a girl sitting on the sidewalk, deeply engrossed in drawing on the pavement. The girl had disheveled brown hair and a face that revealed clear signs of exhaustion. Yet her eyes, though somewhat weary, shone brightly in a strangely captivating way. She seemed lost in her own world, oblivious to the chaos surrounding her. Marcus felt a twinge of irritation with himself for being drawn to the scene. Who sits on the street drawing as if nothing else exists? He wondered. When the light turned green, Marcus drove on, but the image of the girl lingered in his mind. Pulling into a nearby parking lot, he sat in his car, staring at the steering wheel. An idea struck him. Was she the one he had been looking for? Despite thinking the notion was absurd, he turned his car around, deciding to take a chance. Welcome to today's meaningful story. Let me know which city in the world you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our inspiring tales. The girl was still there, leaning her paper against the wall as she continued drawing. Marcus pulled over to the curb and lowered his car window. His voice was cold, devoid of any emotion. Hey you, come here. The girl looked up, her sharp eyes staring straight at him, full of suspicion. She hesitated, not moving. Marcus tapped his fingers on the car door, his voice growing more insistent. I'm not asking. Come here. I don't have all day. Clara Parker, the girl's name, slowly stood up. She approached the car cautiously, maintaining a safe distance. What do you want? She asked, her voice low but firm, her eyes guarded. Marcus observed her for a few seconds before replying, his tone calculated. Get in the car. I'll take you somewhere quiet to talk. Clara let out a bitter laugh. I'm not the kind of person you're looking for, if that's what you think. Marcus frowned. Don't be ridiculous. I don't have time for games. This is serious. Clara hesitated, but under Marcus's unyielding gaze, she reluctantly opened the car door and got in. Neither spoke during the drive. Marcus took her to a quiet cafe. Once seated at a table, he looked directly at her and got straight to the point. I want to make you an offer. I want you to carry my child. Clara froze, unable to believe what she had just heard. But Marcus's serious expression made her realize he wasn't joking. This proposal, as outrageous as it seemed, was real, and it was going to change her life forever. Clara sat silently in Marcus's office, the light from the desk lamp casting shadows across her conflicted face. In front of her was the contract, each line clearly outlining the terms, rights, and responsibilities of both parties. She would carry Marcus's child through artificial insemination, and after the baby was born, she would have to leave, with no further connection to the child. She would be well taken care of throughout the pregnancy. The amount of money stated in the contract was enough to transform her life, enough for her to start anew and escape the instability of living on the streets. But in return, she had to give up something sacred, a child. Marcus sat across from her, composed but with a piercing gaze that seemed to assess her decision. You don't have to decide right now, he said, his tone firm but not pushy. But keep in mind, this opportunity won't last forever. If you refuse, I'll find someone else. Clara clenched her hands tightly, trying to stay calm. After a long pause, she signed her name on the contract. As she set the pen down, it felt as though she had lost a piece of her soul, but she told herself this was the right decision. I won't let you down, she murmured, though doubt still lingered in her heart. Marcus nodded slightly, showing no emotion. Good. We'll begin immediately. A few days later, Clara moved into Marcus's mansion. As she stepped out of the luxurious car, she was overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the place. The large iron gates opened to reveal an expansive, meticulously maintained garden. The mansion stood like a castle, its white walls gleaming and its gray-tiled roof exuding grandeur. Olivia, Marcus's personal assistant, greeted her at the door and led her inside. Your room has been prepared, Olivia said, her voice gentle but professional. Clara stepped into the main hall, where sparkling crystal chandeliers, cold marble floors, and art pieces lining the hallways made her feel as though she had entered an entirely unfamiliar world. Yet beneath all the opulence, Clara felt only emptiness. The mansion, with all its perfection, lacked the warmth she had always longed for in her life. Clara's room was on the second floor, with large windows overlooking the garden. A spacious bed covered with crisp white sheets stood next to an oak desk and a comfortable armchair. In the wardrobe were new clothes tailored to fit her needs. She sat on the bed, gazing out of the window, as a wave of emptiness washed over her. Despite being well cared for, Clara felt like nothing more than a temporary guest in this world. In the first days at the mansion, Clara distinctly felt the distance between herself and Marcus. He rarely appeared. During their infrequent encounters, he would ask brief questions about her health and condition before retreating back to his office. He left her care entirely in the hands of Olivia and other staff members. Yet Marcus managed to bewilder Clara with small, unexpected gestures. One morning, while she was sitting on the balcony, looking out over the garden, Olivia brought her a gift box. "This is from Mr. Marcus," Olivia said, leaving the box with a polite smile. Clara opened it to find a set of high-quality colored pencils and a smooth sketch pad. She was so surprised that she couldn't speak. In a brief conversation with Olivia earlier, she had only casually mentioned that she used to enjoy drawing. She never imagined Marcus would pay attention to such a minor detail. That evening, Clara decided to thank Marcus. When she found him in the library, she spoke up, her voice slightly hesitant. "Thank you for the gift. I didn't think you would notice my interests." Marcus, focused on a document, looked up briefly. "I thought you might need something to pass the time. I hope you're finding it comfortable here," he replied in an even tone, then returned to his work. As time went on, Clara gradually adapted to life in the mansion. She realized that her loneliness was most pronounced during meals. Although the dining table was meticulously prepared, with exquisite dishes cooked by a private chef, Clara always ate alone. Marcus rarely joined her, and when he did, their meals were brief and filled with silence or short questions about her health and condition. Every time Clara looked at the long dining table with dozens of empty chairs, she felt as though she were sitting at the center of an endless void. Even the delicious food couldn't bridge the gap between her and the world around her. At night, the mansion became eerily quiet. Clara often lay on the large bed in her luxurious room, staring at the ceiling and feeling a loneliness that enveloped her like a shadow. The only sounds she heard were the wind brushing against the windows and the slow ticking of a clock. She couldn't sleep, not because of discomfort, but because her mind was torn between memories of the past and anxiety about the future. She thought about her days on the streets, where she had nothing but uncertainty. Yet at least she knew where she belonged. Here, despite having everything, she felt as though she had nothing. To escape the sense of alienation, Clara spent most of her time in the garden or her room, drawing. The sketch pad and colored pencils Marcus had given her became her only companions during the long days. Through each stroke of her pencil, she tried to rediscover herself, transforming her loneliness into something tangible she could control. But even in her drawings, loneliness was present. Clara often sketched scenes of nature, a vast empty field, a solitary tree standing against a gray sky, or a small, isolated house in a desolate landscape. These images didn't just reflect the outside world, but also mirrored her inner state, a soul lost in a space that didn't belong to her. One afternoon, while Clara was sitting on a bench in the garden, Marcus appeared unexpectedly. He stood watching her for a moment before speaking. "Do you need anything else?" he asked. Clara looked up, surprised by the question. "No, everything is fine. Thank you," she replied curtly, trying to maintain her composure. Marcus nodded, but before leaving he added, "If you need anything, let Olivia know." It was a simple statement, but it made Clara feel there was something different in the way Marcus treated her. He wasn't just concerned about keeping things running smoothly. It seemed he genuinely wanted her to feel comfortable. Clara couldn't be sure what Marcus was thinking. She maintained an emotional distance, but his small gestures left her puzzled. She began to realize that this man, despite his cold and calculated exterior, might be hiding another side of himself that he had never revealed. But did that mean anything in a relationship built solely on a contract? She didn't know, and that uncertainty made her even more cautious. Today was Clara's first prenatal appointment. In the quiet, sterile examination room, Clara lay on the ultrasound table, a mix of anticipation and anxiety washing over her. Her belly was still flat. The doctor applied cold gel to her abdomen and began moving the ultrasound probe. The screen displayed blurry images of the fetus, and then a sound emerged, a small, steady heartbeat. Clara's eyes widened, and her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. It was a moment when she felt the life forming inside her. Her heart clenched, not out of fear, but because of a new feeling she couldn't name, a profound connection. Marcus stood a few steps away, his eyes fixed on the screen. He said nothing, but his expression changed. For the first time, the cold and stern demeanor he usually carried was replaced by a flicker of genuine emotion. He stepped closer, as if trying to grasp the miracle unfolding before him. Plan, the word he had once used to describe the entire situation, now felt entirely inadequate. This was no longer a meticulously calculated project. This was a living being, a part of his flesh and blood. On the way back to the mansion, both remained silent, but it wasn't the usual distant silence. It was one filled with unspoken thoughts. That night, as Clara lay in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about that sound, the steady heartbeat of a child. And she knew from that moment everything had changed. She no longer felt as alone as before. At least within her, a life was growing. The moment in the examination room seemed to open a new door between Clara and Marcus. Gradually, their brief and fragmented conversations turned into longer, more meaningful dialogues. They began to share more about their lives, their fears, and the dreams they had kept hidden. One evening, as Clara was sitting in the living room reading a book, Marcus entered, holding a glass of wine. He rarely spent time in the shared areas of the mansion, and his presence surprised her. After a few moments of silence, he spoke. "I didn't think this would happen," he said, his eyes focused on the glass in his hand. "What?" Clara asked, closing her book. "The heartbeat, the child. It made me think about things I didn't want to think about before." Clara looked at him, noticing an unusual honesty in his tone. "That's life," she replied with a gentle smile. "It has a way of changing us, whether we want it or not." Marcus remained silent, as if weighing her words. After a while, he spoke again, his voice deeper. "I once tried to love, but feelings make everything complicated. They take away my ability to control, and when I lose control, I lose everything." Clara nodded, not interrupting. "Life on the streets wasn't easy either," she said. "I learned not to rely on anyone. Trusting someone only to get hurt, that's too painful." They sat there listening to each other's stories, and in that moment, the distance between them seemed to narrow. Clara realized that Marcus, behind his cold exterior, carried unhealed wounds of his own, and Marcus saw that Clara was stronger than he had ever imagined, not just because of the hardships she had endured, but because of how she faced life. Conversations like these began happening more frequently. Marcus listened as Clara recounted cold nights on the streets and the battles she fought to survive. In return, he shared his marital failures and the choices that had turned him into the closed-off man he was today. This morning, they went to the hospital together for a routine ultrasound. Marcus held the door open for Clara as she entered the examination room. The atmosphere was light as the doctor began the procedure. But then, the doctor paused, a wide smile spreading across his face. "Congratulations to both of you," he said. "You're having twins." Marcus froze, his eyes widening in astonishment. "Twins?" he repeated, as if to make sure he hadn't misheard. "That's right," the doctor said, pointing to the screen. "Two babies, both healthy." Clara glanced at Marcus, searching for his reaction, but Marcus said nothing. He just stood there, his eyes fixed on the screen displaying the image of two tiny fetuses moving gently. His heart, usually locked away behind a cold exterior, began to beat faster. Marcus stood motionless, unable to say anything further. In that moment, everything he knew about life, control, logic, and calculation, seemed to shatter. The thought of one child had already felt monumental to him, but two? This went far beyond any expectations or plans he had ever made. Are you still following the story? Leave a comment with "smile" to let us know you're still here. On the drive home, silence filled the car, but this time neither knew what to say. Clara felt her heart racing. Two babies, not just one, but two lives growing inside her. The joy of becoming a mother to twins overwhelmed her, yet it was accompanied by a creeping fear. This was all part of a plan. How could she bear to leave them when the time came? Marcus sat in the driver's seat, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, but his mind was in turmoil. The image of the two babies on the ultrasound screen played over and over in his head, along with questions he had never imagined confronting. He felt an immense responsibility he had never experienced before. He had once thought that having a child was merely a part of the plan to carry on his bloodline and legacy. But now, the idea of being the father of two children made him realize that this could no longer be just a plan. This was life, small, vulnerable human beings who would depend entirely on him. Marcus unconsciously clenched his hands on his knees as if to reassure himself. Would he be capable of fulfilling this role? He who had spent his entire life avoiding complex emotions, could he truly become a good father? These questions left him feeling unsettled, yet they also stirred a feeling he couldn't name, a deep connection he had never experienced before. When he returned to the mansion, Marcus sat alone in the library, sunlight streaming through the window and highlighting the contemplation etched on his face. He wasn't one to easily show his emotions, but this time, he couldn't stop himself from thinking about the two children. Marcus closed his eyes, imagining the day they would be born. He pictured their first cries, their tiny hands clutching his finger, and their innocent eyes looking up at him for the first time. A warm feeling surged in his chest, overwhelming any fear or doubt he had. He realized that, for the first time in his life, he felt unconditional love. A love that wasn't based on any conditions or goals. It was a love for two little lives, children he hadn't even met yet, who had already become the center of his world. The news of the twins didn't just make Marcus aware of his responsibility, it also began to change how he saw everything. He remembered Clara's expression when she heard the news, the way her eyes showed both surprise and emotion. For the first time, he felt a sense of respect for her, not just because she was carrying his children, but because she was shouldering something extraordinary that he could never do on his own. Marcus started thinking about how he would prepare for the arrival of the two babies. He spent more time learning about parenting, something he had once thought was unnecessary. He also began paying more attention to Clara, even though he maintained his stern exterior. He inquired about her health and paid attention to small details, such as her favorite foods or when she needed rest. One afternoon, Clara walked into the nursery and found Marcus examining crib models. He looked serious, as if he were making decisions for an important business project. "What are you doing here?" Clara asked, her tone tinged with curiosity. "I think we should prepare early," Marcus replied without looking up. Clara watched him for a moment, then let out a soft laugh. "I didn't think you were the type to prepare ahead." Marcus shrugged, his expression softening. "Maybe I'm learning to change." Later that afternoon, as Clara descended the stairs, she happened upon Marcus intently observing the workers putting the finishing touches on the nursery. He even inspected minor details himself, from the paint color on the walls to the fabric of the crib sheets. When he noticed her, Marcus paused, hesitating as though he wasn't accustomed to being caught in such candid moments. "What do you think of the room?" he asked, his tone still firm, but his eyes holding a hint of anticipation. Clara smiled softly. "I think the babies will be very happy here." Marcus didn't reply, but a faint smile crossed his face. For the first time, Clara realized that Marcus was genuinely trying to change, not because of the contract, but for something much greater, perhaps for the two children, or maybe even for her. In the days that followed, Marcus spent more time with Clara. One day, while she was sketching on a bench in the garden, Marcus approached with 2 cups of tea. "I wasn't sure what kind of tea you like," he said, placing both cups down. "So I guessed." Clara laughed, a soft and rare sound in the quiet atmosphere of the mansion. She picked up a cup and thanked him. Despite Marcus's gestures still being awkward, they made Clara feel that he was genuinely trying. Even as she began to notice changes in Marcus, Clara couldn't dispel the fear in her heart. She kept wondering whether he had truly changed or if he was merely revealing a temporary side of himself to ensure everything in the plan went smoothly. Memories of her life on the streets, of betrayal and hurt, still ran deep in her mind. One night, sitting in her room, Clara looked at a sketch she had just drawn of the two children. Her eyes lingered on Marcus's face, which she had unconsciously drawn in the corner of the paper. In the sketch, Marcus was smiling, a gentle smile full of emotion. She wondered, is this man really the Marcus I know? Clara felt a vague pain, one she couldn't name. She feared that the feelings she was experiencing, the attachment to the two children, and even to Marcus, were merely illusions. If Marcus returned to his cold and distant self, could she endure it? This conflicting emotion left Clara in a state of anxiety, even though Marcus was showing increasing care and sincerity. One evening, Clara and Marcus happened to meet on the mansion's terrace. It was a quiet night, with the city lights in the distance resembling tiny stars flickering on the ground. Clara, wrapped in a light coat, leaned against the railing, gazing far away with dreamy eyes. Marcus appeared from behind, carrying a blanket. "You'll catch a cold if you sit like that," he said, gently draping the blanket over her shoulders. "Thank you," Clara murmured, pulling the blanket closer. The two stood in silence for a moment, only the sound of the wind passing by breaking it. "Did you ever think your life would turn out like this?" Marcus asked suddenly, breaking the quiet. Clara turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" Marcus gazed into the distance, his eyes far away. "You, the two children, Mr. All of this. I never thought I'd be here in this situation." Clara didn't respond immediately. She turned back to look at the city, her voice soft. "Neither did I. But life always has a way of taking us to places we never expected." Marcus sat down beside her, his hands clasped, his voice low. "I've spent my entire life trying to control everything. Work, relationships, even my emotions. I thought if I could control it all, I wouldn't get hurt. But now—" He paused, searching for words. "But now what?" Clara gently urged. Marcus sighed. "Your presence and the children's has changed me. I'm not sure I'm the same man I used to be anymore." Clara looked at him, her eyes reflecting an emotion she didn't want to acknowledge. "You don't need to change for me," she said. "But if you truly change, do it for yourself and for the children." Marcus turned to her, his gaze filled with sincerity. "I'm trying, not because of the contract, not because of the plan, but because I've realized I want something real, a family." Marcus's words made Clara feel as though a small flame had ignited within her, but at the same time, fear still clung to her. Could what he said truly be lasting, or was it only fleeting? Although she didn't fully trust him, Clara felt that this was the first time Marcus had truly opened up, and she knew no matter how scared she was, she couldn't stop her heart from feeling. That evening, the two of them sat on the terrace for a long time, sharing things they had never told anyone before. Marcus spoke of loss and loneliness he had never admitted to. Clara shared dreams she had once believed she could never reach. Under the dim light of the city, something deeper began to bloom. Not the forced connection of a contract, but a genuine bond. Marcus and Clara, both uncertain about the future, felt, at least in that moment, no longer alone. On a quiet morning, Clara woke with a strange sensation in her body. The dull ache in her abdomen made her realize that the day she had awaited and feared had arrived. As the pain intensified, she called for Olivia, and within minutes Marcus appeared, his face serious but his eyes filled with worry. "Get the car ready. We need to get to the hospital now," he ordered quickly as Olivia helped Clara into a seat. On the way to the hospital, Clara focused on breathing steadily, but the pain was a relentless reminder of the two little lives about to enter the world. Marcus sat beside her, his hand firmly gripping hers. It wasn't a habitual gesture. It was reassurance, a silent promise that he wouldn't leave her. "You'll be fine," Marcus said, his voice softer than it had ever been. "We'll get through this together." At the hospital, Clara was taken to the delivery room. She felt each wave of pain intensify, sweat beading on her forehead. Marcus, dressed in medical scrubs, stood beside her, holding her hand tightly as though he was her last anchor. "Don't give up," he said firmly. "You're stronger than you think." Clara, though in pain, gave a faint smile. Marcus's presence gave her a little more courage, even if just a small amount. After hours of labor and effort, the first cry echoed through the room, a baby boy. The doctor gently lifted the baby, his tiny red face and body placed on her chest. Clara felt the warmth of the small body seep into her skin. She looked down at the baby's flushed face and closed eyes. His tiny fingers curled slightly, seeking comfort in this new world. Clara had never thought she could love someone so instantly. She felt unconditional love, a love that demanded nothing but protection and care. Tears welled up in Clara's eyes, spilling over without control. They weren't tears of pain or exhaustion, but of deep emotion. This child was a part of her, a life she had carried all these months. The connection was stronger than anything she had ever known. Just a few minutes later, the second cry rang out. A baby girl. Clara felt her heart expand even further. She hadn't thought it possible to love this much. When Marcus saw the two children, he stepped closer, his eyes fixated and emotional. When the doctor brought the first baby toward him, Marcus froze, his hands clumsy and unsure. Throughout his life, he had always been confident in any situation, but now in front of this tiny being crying in the doctor's arms, he felt unprepared and vulnerable. "This is your son," the doctor said, handing the baby to him. Marcus, with his usual composed demeanor, instinctively stepped back as if afraid he might harm the fragile child by simply touching him. But as his hands reached out to cradle the small body, everything around him seemed to pause. The baby, wrapped in a white blanket, his face red and tiny, began to calm as his cries softened. Marcus leaned in closer, gazing at his son, and for the first time, he felt something he had never experienced: instant, unconditional love. It wasn't part of a plan or a goal in life. This was life itself, a piece of him, a miracle he had never dared dream of. "This is your son," the doctor said, placing the baby in Marcus's hands. Marcus, with his usual composed demeanor, instinctively stepped back, as if afraid he might harm the baby just by touching him. But as his hands gently lifted the tiny body, everything around him seemed to stop. The baby, wrapped in a white blanket, his eyes closed and his flushed face peaceful, let out a soft cry that gradually faded. Marcus leaned closer to look at his son, and for the first time, he felt something he had never experienced before: immediate, unconditional love, without any reason or prerequisite. This wasn't part of a plan, nor a goal to be achieved. This was life itself, a part of him, a miracle he had never dared to dream of. "My child," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. His hands, accustomed to signing significant deals, now held the baby with a tenderness as if even the slightest movement could shatter the fragile wonder in his arms. When the second cry echoed through the room, Marcus lifted his head, his eyes locked on the doctor. "The second baby?" he asked, his voice almost disbelieving. The doctor smiled and brought the baby girl forward. A healthy, beautiful baby girl. This time Marcus didn't hesitate. He extended his hands, gently taking her. As he gazed down, he saw her tiny face, her lips curling slightly as though she were smiling in her sleep. He bent his head and kissed her forehead lightly, a wave of emotions crashing over him, not fear or confusion, but a profound, quiet joy. Marcus looked down at both babies, one nestled in each arm. This feeling was unlike any success in business or the satisfaction of personal triumph. This was love. This was the true meaning he had never realized was missing in his life. "They're perfect," Marcus whispered, his hands steady yet tender, as he cradled both children. In that moment, he knew his life had irrevocably changed. This was no longer about legacy or a plan. This was family, something he never thought he could have. Clara was taken to her private room to rest after giving birth. Exhausted, she couldn't sleep. Her eyes kept drifting to the two babies sleeping in cribs beside her bed. They were tiny, fragile, and with each gentle breath, they imprinted an indescribable love deeper into her heart. But alongside that love, pain began to surface. Clara recalled the terms of the contract she had signed. She knew that under the agreement, she had no rights to the two children. Her role was complete. She had been the surrogate, and now it was time for her to leave. The conflicting emotions left Clara in a state of turmoil. How could she walk away from the two children she had carried and given birth to? But she also understood that trying to keep them would not only breach the contract, but also disrupt everything that had been agreed upon. That afternoon, Marcus came to visit Clara, his face filled with a gentleness she had never seen before. He held the twins, his eyes focused on their every tiny movement. Marcus glanced at Clara, who lay on the hospital bed, weary but with eyes full of love, as she watched him and the babies. In her gaze, Marcus saw a trust he had never believed he deserved. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "Thank you for everything. I can never repay you enough." Clara didn't respond. She turned away, unwilling to let him see the tears threatening to fall. Marcus didn't notice the pain in her heart, or perhaps he did, but didn't know how to confront it. The day Clara had to leave the mansion came sooner than she expected. She spent her final morning beside the twins, stroking their tiny hands and imprinting every detail into her memory. Clara gently kissed each child on the forehead, feeling the softness of their skin against her lips. She whispered, as if speaking to herself, "I love you more than anything in this world. Even if I can't stay with you, you will always be a part of me." In that moment, Clara felt the deepest love she had ever known, while also facing the greatest pain. Yet she understood that these two children had given her something she had never had before, a reason to keep moving forward, no matter how difficult the road ahead might be. Olivia came to help her pack, her gaze gentle yet tinged with sadness. "Are you sure you want to leave?" Olivia asked softly. "I think Mr. Marcus might—" "No," Clara interrupted, her voice firm but filled with pain. "This is what I have to do." Clara descended the stairs, her eyes sweeping over every corner of the house she had grown accustomed to. In the grand foyer, Marcus stood waiting, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression stern, but his eyes holding something different. Beside him, Olivia carefully held the two sleeping babies. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked, his voice low, but unable to hide the tension. Clara nodded, unable to speak. She stepped forward, leaning down to kiss each child lightly on the forehead. When she straightened, she turned to face Marcus, ready to say goodbye. But before she could speak, Marcus suddenly pulled a stack of papers from his pocket, the contract they had both signed months ago. Without a word, he tore through the pages, the sound of ripping paper echoing in the quiet space. Clara froze, her eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling. Marcus didn't reply immediately. He looked deeply into her eyes, as if trying to convey everything he couldn't put into words. "I can't let you leave," he said, his voice hoarse but resolute. "This contract means nothing anymore." Clara shook her head, unsure how to react. "What are you saying? This isn't what we agreed on." Marcus stepped closer, his gaze softening yet remaining intense. "I know. I made all the rules. I did this because I thought I could control everything. But I was wrong, Clara." He paused, taking a deep breath as though summoning all his courage. "You changed me. You're not just the woman who carried my children. You're the one who showed me that life can't be built on plans and contracts alone. You've given meaning to things I never thought I needed. Family, love." Clara looked at Marcus, her heart pounding. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The man who had always been so cold and distant was now admitting things she never thought he would say. "Marcus, I'm not sure what this means," she whispered, trying to find the words to refuse. But Marcus interrupted. "It means I'm afraid of losing you, not just because of the twins. I'm afraid of losing you, Clara. I want you to stay, not because of a contract, but because I want us to build a real family together." His words were filled with emotion, his voice breaking on the final sentence. Marcus, who had always believed that emotions were the greatest weakness of a person, now didn't hesitate to show all his sincerity. Clara took a step back, her eyes filling with tears. "Marcus, I don't know if I can believe this will last. I've been hurt too many times. I'm not sure I can face that again." Marcus nodded, as if he had anticipated her response. "I understand. I don't expect you to believe me right away, but I'm willing to spend a lifetime proving it to you." Clara felt the genuineness in every word he said. Though the fear still lingered, her heart couldn't deny that Marcus had changed and that he was truly trying. She turned away, tears streaming down her face. The moments of inner turmoil left her breathless. But when she looked toward the twins, the little lives she had carried, she realized that she couldn't let her fear stop her from giving this family a chance she had never dared to dream of. Finally, Clara turned back to face Marcus, her tear-filled eyes reflecting newfound determination. "All right," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I'll stay. Not because of the contract, but because I want to believe that we can make this work." Marcus let out a deep sigh of relief, his eyes also glistening with tears. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her, for the first time letting all his emotions show. "Thank you," he whispered, as though those words weren't enough to express his gratitude and happiness. What do you think about the story? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. That evening, Clara and Marcus sat together, watching the twins sleep peacefully. There was no tension or distance between them anymore, only hope and the beginning of a new journey. Clara knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone. She had Marcus, the twins, and a family, something she had never thought she deserved. Marcus, who had once feared and avoided emotions, now understood that love and connection weren't weaknesses, but the greatest strengths of humanity. And with Clara by his side, he believed he could become a better man, a father, a partner, and a true part of a family. The gentle sunlight bathed the large garden of the mansion, which had been adorned with pure white flowers and soft ribbons. There was no extravagance or glamour. Marcus and Clara's wedding was simple yet deeply meaningful. Only a few close friends and the longtime staff of the mansion were in attendance. At the center of it all, the twins were the focus of everyone's attention. Olivia, dressed in an elegant blue gown, held both babies in her arms, her radiant smile revealing her joy. Clara wore a simple white dress, her hair gently tied by Olivia with a small flower crown. She walked slowly toward Marcus, their gazes meeting, and without any words, everything they felt was conveyed. Marcus, in a simple black suit, looked very different from the cold man he once was. He smiled gently, a smile that Clara knew was meant just for her. As they exchanged vows, the air became still, with only the sounds of the wind and the soft giggles of the twins filling the space. Marcus took Clara's hand, his voice warm and sincere. "I promise to always stand by you, not only as your husband, but as a companion, a father, and someone you can rely on." Clara smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "I also promise to trust you, to build this family with you, and never leave you." When they shared their first kiss as husband and wife, soft applause echoed, but what moved Clara most was the joyful cheer of the twins. She looked at the two children, her heart overflowing with love, and felt that this was the new beginning she had never dared to dream of. After the wedding, Marcus and Clara's family life entered a new chapter. Marcus, who had once been awkward in expressing emotions, began learning how to be a father. The first time he changed the twins' diapers, both Clara and Olivia couldn't help but laugh as he fumbled with the basic tasks. But instead of getting upset, Marcus just smiled and patiently tried again. "Don't laugh at me," he said, but couldn't hide his pride when he finally completed the task. "I did it." Marcus also began to sing lullabies to the children, even though his voice wasn't exactly perfect. Clara often stood outside the door, secretly watching him with a warm smile as he gently soothed the twins to sleep. These small gestures to Clara were proof of the changes and the love Marcus had for their family. As for Clara, she also began to trust in the love they were building together. The fears and doubts that once consumed her gradually faded. Although sometimes she still felt anxious, Marcus was always there, patiently showing that he would never let her endure any pain again. One warm afternoon, the whole family sat together in the garden, where Clara had once painted during her early days there. The twins, now a little older, giggled as they played with petals falling on the grass. Marcus sat on a bench, one hand resting on Clara's shoulder, the other holding a book as he read to the children. Clara leaned against him, her eyes never leaving the children. Their pure laughter blended with the sound of the wind and birds singing, creating a melody that she never knew she longed to hear. She turned to look at Marcus, a gentle smile on her face, but her eyes shining with deep satisfaction. "Are you happy?" she asked, her voice soft as the wind. Marcus turned to her, gazing deeply into her eyes. "Happier than I ever thought I could feel." Clara smiled, her hand holding his. In that moment, she felt as though everything had fallen into place. The hardships, the wounds, and the fears were now just memories of the past. She had found where she belonged, and it wasn't in the grandeur of the mansion or the wealth. It was in this family. The happiness Marcus and Clara shared didn't come from perfection. They had faced challenges, internal struggles, and unavoidable pain. But what set them apart was the way they overcame it all together, with understanding, patience, and true love. Clara, a woman who once believed she was undeserving of love, now realized that happiness wasn't something distant or unattainable. It was found in the simple moments shared with the most important people. Marcus, a man who once thought emotions were a weakness, had learned to open his heart and accept that love was the greatest strength of all. As the sun began to set, painting the garden in golden hues of twilight, Clara softly said to Marcus, "We've found happiness, haven't we?" Marcus smiled, pressing a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Yes, and we'll keep it every single day." The family sat there, listening to the laughter of their children and savoring the peace they had built together. They knew the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but as long as they had each other, no challenge was insurmountable. Happiness isn't a destination, it's a journey, and Marcus and Clara had discovered its true meaning. Thank you for listening to the story. Please rate it and let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.